I didn't even get to sit down before my own sister humiliated me in front of the entire family, and what broke me wasn't what she said, it was what everyone else didn't say. My mother looked at me like I was the problem, like I had done something unforgivable, and my father, he didn't defend me, he didn't ask what happened. He just walked to the door and opened it like he'd been waiting for this moment. And my husband? He didn't stand up for me either. He just lowered his voice and told me to apologize. Like keeping the peace mattered more than the truth. That was the night I realized I wasn't part of that family anymore. I was just someone they were trying to control. Before I tell you what really happened, take a second only if this story truly resonates with you. Tap like, subscribe, and let me know where you're watching from, and what time it is there. I always read those, and it reminds me I'm not alone in this. My name is Emily Carter. I'm 37 years old, and this is the night my entire family turned on me and had no idea what they were about to lose. It started on Thanksgiving. I almost didn't go. I was sitting in my apartment, still in my uniform pants, staring at my phone for a good 10 minutes before I even replied to my mom's text. Dinner's at 6. Don't be late. No, we miss you. No, drive safe. Just that. I should have trusted my gut. But I told myself it was just another awkward holiday, that maybe this year would be different. It wasn't. When I walked into the house, it already felt off. You know that feeling when people were talking before you walked in, and then suddenly everything goes quiet? Yeah. That. My mom barely hugged me. My dad gave me this quick nod like I was a coworker, not his daughter. And my husband Daniel, he was already there, standing next to my sister Jessica, laughing about something I clearly wasn't part of. That was new. I remember thinking that was weird. I hung up my coat and walked into the dining room, and that's when I saw it. A stack of papers, sitting right in the middle of the table. Not plates. Not food. Papers. My name was on the top page. Typed. Clean. Like something official. I didn't pick them up. I just looked at them for a second too long, I guess. Because Jessica noticed. She smirked. Don't worry about those, she said. We'll get to it. Get to it? I felt this tight feeling in my chest, but I pushed it down. I told myself I was overthinking. We sat down. Small talk started. Or at least, they tried. It wasn't really a conversation. It felt like waiting. Like everyone was just sitting there, going through the motions until something else happened. And then it did. I stood up to grab a glass from the counter, and on my way back, I lightly brushed past Jessica's chair. It was nothing, barely a touch. But she snapped. Her chair scraped back hard against the floor, and before I could even process what was happening, she stood up so fast it knocked her napkin to the ground. Are you blind or just stupid? She shouted, loud enough that it echoed off the walls. Every head turned. Forks stopped. And I just froze there, holding a glass in my hand, trying to understand how we got from small talk to that in less than a second. I looked at her, expecting anyone to step in. No one did. My mom didn't even look surprised. She just sighed, like this was inconvenient for her, and said, Emily, say sorry. Now. I blinked. For what? I asked, honestly confused. That's when everything shifted. The room didn't feel like a family dinner anymore. It felt like a setup. And in that moment I realized I wasn't there to celebrate Thanksgiving. I was there for something else entirely. Something they had already planned before I even walked through that door. And I had no idea how deep it went. For a second, I actually thought maybe I missed something. Like maybe I had done something wrong without realizing it. Because that is how it always used to feel growing up in that house. Like there was always some invisible rule I was breaking, and everyone else somehow understood except me. I remember standing there as a kid, maybe 10 or 11, holding a report card with straight, as thinking my parents would finally be proud, and my mom barely glanced at it before saying, That is nice, but your sister needs help with her project. Go assist her. Jessica had gotten a C that semester, and somehow that mattered more than anything I did. It was always like that. If I did well, it was expected. If she struggled, it was an emergency. I learned early on that attention in our house did not come from success, it came from need, and Jessica always needed something. Birthdays were the same story. I remember one year, my dad promised to take me out to dinner, just the two of us, because I had just gotten accepted into a competitive program at school, something I had worked toward for years. That night came, and instead of leaving, we stayed home because Jessica had a bad day and did not want to be alone. My dad patted my shoulder and said, "We will celebrate later." We never did. Even small things, like chores or rules, felt different depending on who it was. If I came home 10 minutes late, I would get a lecture about responsibility. If Jessica stayed out past midnight, my mom would just say, "She is going through a lot." I stopped arguing after a while. It felt pointless. I figured if I just worked harder, kept my head down, eventually they would see me. That never really happened. Joining the military was the first time I felt like I earned something on my own, something nobody could take away or minimize. I remember the day I left for training. My mom hugged me quickly, like she was checking something off a list, and my dad said, "Make sure you call your sister. She's going to miss you." Not, "We will miss you." Just her. Even after I built a career, even after I made something of myself, that pattern never fully went away. Every visit home felt like stepping back into that same role. The reliable one, the quiet one, the one who would give in just to keep things from escalating. And Jessica? She stayed exactly the same. Loud, reactive, always at the center of everything, and somehow always protected. I should have recognized it the moment I walked into that dining room and saw those papers sitting there like they belonged to someone else's life, not mine. I should have understood why Daniel was already there, standing next to her instead of waiting for me. That was not normal. That was not an accident. And looking back, there was one memory that kept replaying in my head as I stood there that night. My mom telling me to apologize for something I did not do. It was something my dad said years ago, quiet enough that I almost forgot it until now. He had been looking at a stack of documents at the kitchen table, similar to the ones in front of me now, and he said, almost to himself, "One day, all of this is going to depend on her signature." At the time, I thought he was talking about something routine, something boring. But standing there in that moment, with everyone watching me, waiting for me to fold, I realized he was not talking about something small. And whatever it was, they had been planning this for a long time. The first real shift did not happen at that table. It started years earlier, and I did not even realize it at the time. I had just been promoted. It was not something small either. I had spent over a decade working my way up, moving base to base, missing holidays, missing birthdays, putting everything into my career, and for the first time, it felt like it actually paid off. I remember standing in that office, being handed the paperwork, my name printed clearly across the top, and thinking, "This is mine. I earned this. No one helped me. No one handed it to me." It was one of the few moments in my life where I felt completely certain about who I was. When I called home to tell them, the reaction was not what I expected. My mom paused for a second, then said, "That is good, but do not let it change you." My dad just asked what it meant financially. Jessica laughed. Actually laughed. "So what, you think you are better than us now?" she said. I tried to brush it off. I told myself they just did not understand. That they were reacting the only way they knew how. But that was the first time I felt it clearly, that distance. Like I was stepping into something new, and they were not coming with me. Things got stranger after that. Calls from my parents became more frequent, but not in a normal way. It was never about how I was doing. It was always about what I could do. My mom would say things like, "You are doing so well now. Maybe you can help your sister get back on her feet." My dad started asking more detailed questions about my benefits, my housing, my savings. At first, it sounded like curiosity. Later, it started to feel like something else. Jessica, on the other hand, changed in a different way. She started showing up more, calling more, acting like we were suddenly close again. It felt forced. I remember one call in particular. She was unusually nice, asking about my job, telling me she was proud of me, which she had never said before. Then she said, "You know, family should support each other, no matter what." The way she said it made my stomach turn. It did not feel like support. It felt like expectation. Around that same time, Daniel started acting different too. Subtle at first. He would ask about my work in ways that felt specific. Not how was your day, but who handles your paperwork. How ownership works for certain benefits. What happens if you transfer something? I asked him once why he cared so much, and he just shrugged and said he was trying to understand my world better. I wanted to believe that. I really did. But something about it did not sit right. Then came the visit. Jessica convinced my parents to come stay with us for a weekend. It had been years since we all spent that much time together in one place. I thought maybe it was a chance to reset things. It was not. The entire weekend felt like an interview. Questions, observations, little comments about my apartment, my schedule, my finances. At one point, I walked into the kitchen and saw my dad looking through a folder I had left on the counter. He closed it quickly when he saw me and said, "Just curious." That word again. Curious. But it did not feel like curiosity. It felt like they were putting something together. And the worst part was, Daniel was right there with them. Not stopping it. Not questioning it. Just present. Like he already knew what they were looking for. That was when I started to realize something I did not want to admit. This was not random. This was not just family being difficult. There was a pattern, a direction, and whatever they were building, it was leading somewhere. I just did not know where yet. But I could feel it, like something was coming, something bigger than all the little moments I had ignored. And standing there at that Thanksgiving table now, with everyone watching me, waiting for me to break, I finally understood. This was it. This was what they had been working toward all along. It all came together faster than I expected, and somehow slower at the same time, like every small moment I had ignored was lining up into something I could not stop anymore. I was still standing there, my mom staring at me, waiting, my sister watching with that same smug look, and Daniel, still not looking at me. When my dad finally spoke. Not to defend me, not to calm things down. He just said very quietly, "Emily, just sign the papers and this all goes away." That was it. No explanation. No conversation. Just that. I felt something drop in my chest. "What papers?" I asked, even though I already knew. My mom sighed like I was being difficult. She reached over, pulled the stack closer, and slid it across the table toward me. "Do not make this harder than it needs to be," she said. "It is just a transfer. Family assets. We are keeping everything together." I looked down. My name was right there at the top. Below it, legal language, ownership terms, property details, and then I saw it. My apartment, my savings account, even a portion of a fund tied to my military benefits. All of it listed, all of it set to be transferred. Not shared, not managed, transferred. Away from me. I felt my hands go cold. "You want me to give all of this to you?" I asked, my voice quieter than I expected. Jessica leaned forward, resting her elbows on the table like this was just another conversation. "It is not to us," she said. "It is for the family. You are not even here most of the time. It makes more sense this way." More sense. That word echoed in my head. I looked at Daniel then. Really looked at him, waiting for him to say something. Anything that sounded like reason. He finally met my eyes for a second, then looked away again. "It is not a big deal, Emily," he said. "We talked about this." My heart skipped. "We never talked about this," I said. He hesitated. Just for a second. But it was enough. That was when I realized. They had talked about it. Just not with me. My mom's voice cut through again. "You are making a scene," she said. "All we are asking is for you to support your family, after everything we have done for you." That almost made me laugh, but I did not. I just stood there, staring at them, trying to understand how they could say something like that with a straight face. My dad spoke again, firmer this time. "Sign it, Emily. Not a request. A command." Like I was still a kid in his house. Like I still had to listen. Jessica tapped the paper with her finger. "Or what?" she said, almost teasing. That was when my mom snapped, her voice sharp, final. "Or you can leave. Right now. If you are not willing to be part of this family, then you do not get to benefit from it either." The room went completely still. No one objected. No one stepped in. Even Daniel stayed quiet. I looked around the table, at every single person sitting there. And for the first time, I saw it clearly. This was never about helping. This was never about family. This was a setup, a trap that had been building for years. Every question, every visit, every conversation, all leading to this moment. And they thought I would fold. They thought I would pick up that pen, sign everything away, just to keep the peace like I always had. My dad shifted slightly and opened the front door without saying a word, the cold air from outside drifting into the room. That was their answer. That was their final move. And standing there with everything they had just asked of me, everything they had already taken for granted, something inside me finally broke. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly, completely. Because in that moment, I understood something they did not. They thought they were taking everything from me. But they had no idea what they had just set in motion. The cold air hit me the second I stepped outside, but I barely felt it. I just walked. I did not look back. Not even once. I got into my car, closed the door, and for a few seconds, I just sat there with my hands on the steering wheel, staring straight ahead. My phone was still in my coat pocket. It started vibrating before I even turned the engine on. I did not check it. Not yet. I drove about 2 blocks away before I finally pulled over under a streetlight. That was when I took the phone out. 6 missed calls. All from my mom. 3 from Daniel. 1 from Jessica. And then the messages started loading. My mom. "Emily, do not do this. Come back inside and we can talk." Another one right after. "You are overreacting. Daniel. Please pick up. Let us just fix this." Jessica. Wow. Dramatic as always. I stared at the screen, reading each one slowly. Not one message said they were wrong. Not one said sorry. It was all about me coming back. Me fixing it. Me making it easier for them. I did not reply. I just put the phone down in the passenger seat and sat there in silence. A few minutes later, it rang again. This time, I answered. I do not know why. Maybe part of me still hoped. It was my dad. He did not say hello. He just said, "You are making a mistake." I let out a slow breath. "Am I?" I asked. There was a pause. Then he said, "If you walk away from this, do not expect things to stay the same." That was his warning. Not concern. Not care. Just a warning. "They already are not the same," I said, and then I hung up. My hands were shaking a little after that, but I did not cry. I expected to. I thought I would break down the second I was alone. But it did not happen. It felt more like something had gone quiet inside me. Like a switch had flipped. When I got back to my apartment, there was an email waiting for me. From Daniel. The subject line read, "We need to be reasonable." I almost did not open it. But I did. It was long. Too long. Paragraph after paragraph explaining how this was for the greater good, how my family was just trying to protect what matters, how I was letting emotions get in the way of logic. He even wrote, You know you do not need all of that on your own. I read that line twice, slowly. Then I closed the email without replying. About an hour later, another one came in. This time from my mom. Shorter. Call me when you calm down. That was it. No apology, no acknowledgement, just that. Around midnight, my phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something told me not to. I opened it. It was a picture. A photo of the papers from the table. Signed. Not by me. But someone had tried. My name was there. Written. But not mine. I stared at it for a long time, zooming in, looking at the signature. It was close. Close enough that someone who did not know me might believe it. But I knew immediately. It was not mine. Under the image, there was a message. We can handle this without you. No name, no explanation. But I knew exactly who it came from. I did not respond. I just locked my phone and set it face down on the table. The room was completely quiet. No television. No music. Nothing. Just me. Sitting there. Staring at nothing. Realizing that every attempt to fix this, every call, every message, every email, was not about fixing anything. It was about control. And for the first time in my life, I was completely outside of it. Completely alone. And strangely, that silence felt clearer than anything I had ever heard. I did not sleep that night. I tried, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw that table again. The papers, the way my dad held the door open, the way Daniel would not look at me. Around 2 in the morning, I got up and walked through my apartment, just moving from room to room without a reason. It felt different somehow, quieter than usual, not peaceful, just empty. I stopped in the doorway of my bedroom and looked at the closet. Half of it was his. Daniel's. His jackets, his shoes, the things he left behind when he said he would stay over at your parents' place for a few days. I walked over slowly and just stood there, staring at them. Then I reached out and moved one of his jackets aside. There was nothing behind it. No note. No explanation. Just space. That was when it really hit me. He was not coming back. Not to fix things. Not to talk. Not to apologize. He had already chosen, and I had not even realized when that choice was made. I sat down on the edge of the bed and picked up my phone again. Not because I expected anything new, but because I needed to be sure. I opened our message thread. Months of emos. Normal things. Grocery lists, plans, small jokes. Then I scrolled further back. And further. That was when I started noticing things I had missed before. Messages that stopped abruptly. Times he said he was busy, but now I knew he had been at my parents' house. Calls I had not questioned. Little gaps that suddenly felt intentional. I set the phone down slowly. I did not feel angry. Not yet. It was something heavier than that. Like something had been taken from me without me even knowing it was happening. Around 3:30 in the morning, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was not family. It was my bank. A notification. Unusual login attempt detected. I sat up immediately, fully awake now. I opened the app and checked. Everything was still there. Nothing moved. But the attempt, it came from a location I recognized. My parents' town. I stared at the screen for a long time, my heart beating slower, not faster. It was not panic. It was confirmation. Everything I had tried not to believe was real. I got up, went into the kitchen, and poured myself a glass of water. My hands were steady. That surprised me. I leaned against the counter and just stood there, listening to the quiet. No calls. No messages now. It was like they had all decided to stop at the same time. Like they were waiting. Waiting for me to come back. To give in. To make it easy again. I thought about calling someone. A friend. Someone from work. But I did not. I could not find the words to explain this. Not yet. Instead, I walked back to the living room and sat down on the couch, pulling a blanket around my shoulders even though I was not cold. I just needed something to hold on to. I stayed there until the sky started to change, that soft gray light coming through the windows just before sunrise. And in that moment, sitting there alone, with everything that had just happened settling into place, I realized something I had not allowed myself to see before. I had been losing them for years, piece by piece, conversation by conversation. I just did not notice, because I kept trying to hold everything together. But now, there was nothing left to hold. No family dinner, no husband beside me, no place I could walk back into and pretend it was normal again. Just silence. Just me. And for the first time in a very long time, I stopped trying to fix it. I reached for my phone one more time, opened a contact I had not used in months, and stared at it for a few seconds before pressing call. When the line connected, I said quietly, "I think it is time." I did not wait for things to settle before I started moving. The moment that call ended, I got up, changed out of my clothes, and packed a small bag. Not everything, just what I needed. A few uniforms, documents, my laptop. I moved through the apartment quietly, like I was leaving a place that no longer belonged to me. By the time the sun was fully up, I was already on the road. No messages from them. Not yet. That silence told me everything. They thought I would come back. They thought I just needed time to calm down. I did not. I drove straight to base and walked into my office like it was any other day. Same desk, same chair, same routine, but something inside me had shifted. I sat down, opened my laptop, and started making calls. Not emotional ones, not personal ones, professional, structured, clear, the kind of calls I was trained to make. Within an hour, I had scheduled 2 meetings, sent out 3 emails, and locked down access to every account tied to my name. No hesitation. No second guessing. I changed passwords, verified identities, flagged unusual activity, everything I should have done months ago. I did in one morning. My phone buzzed once around 9. I glanced at it. My mom. I let it ring. Then another message came in. "Daniel." I did not open it. Not yet. I kept working. That was the difference now. Before, I would have stopped everything to answer, to explain, to fix. Now, I just continued. Around noon, I stepped outside for a minute, just to breathe. The air was cold, sharp, clear. I stood there for a while, hands in my pockets, watching people move in and out of the building like nothing had changed. And for them, nothing had. That was the strange part. The world kept going. No one knew what had just happened. No one knew what I had lost, or what I had just decided. I went back inside and finished the rest of what I started. By the end of the day, everything connected to me was secured. Locked. Untouchable. Not because I was afraid anymore, but because I was done leaving doors open for people who never had permission to walk through them. That evening, I returned to my apartment, but I did not stay long. I packed more this time. Boxes. Files. Things that mattered. I did not rush, but I did not hesitate either. Piece by piece, I cleared out what was mine. Not everything. Just enough to make it clear. I was not staying. I left the rest behind. Not as a statement. Just because it did not matter anymore. By the time the sun went down, I had a new place lined up. Temporary, but mine. Small. Quiet. No history in the walls. No memories attached to it. I unlocked the door, stepped inside, and set my bag down on the floor. The room echoed slightly. Empty. Clean. I stood there for a moment looking around, then walked over to the window and pulled the curtain aside. City lights. Distant traffic. Normal life. I exhaled slowly. No calls. No messages now. Or maybe there were. I just had not checked. I did not need to. For the first time in a long time, my life was not tied to their reactions. It was not waiting on their approval. It was not shaped by their expectations. It was just mine. And I was building it again. From the ground up. No shortcuts. No compromises. Just decisions. Clear ones. The kind I could stand by. I turned away from the window, sat down on the floor, and leaned back against the wall. No furniture yet. No noise. Just space. And in that quiet, I felt something unfamiliar. Not relief. Not happiness. Not yet. But something close. Something steady. Like the beginning of something that did not depend on anyone else. And as I sat there, I realized this was not the end of what they started. Not even close. Because everything I had just done was only the first step. And they still had no idea what was coming next. The first real sign that things had shifted did not come from a message or a call. It came from the way people started looking at me at work. Not with curiosity, not with sympathy, but with recognition. I walked into the building that morning in full uniform, pressed, clean, every detail exactly where it should be, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was standing fully in something I had built on my own. My name was on the door now. Not temporary. Not shared. Mine. Emily Carter, Senior Operations Officer. I paused for a second before stepping inside, just looking at it. It was a small thing, just a plate with my name and title, but it felt heavier than that. It felt earned. Inside, everything moved the way it always did. Briefings. Reports. Decisions that actually mattered. People came to me with questions, and I answered without hesitation. There was no second guessing here. No one was waiting for me to fold or apologize or make myself smaller to keep the peace. If I spoke, people listened. If I made a call, it carried weight. Around mid-morning, I had a meeting with a regional coordinator, someone who had been in the field longer than I had. He walked in, shook my hand, and said, "I have been hearing your name a lot lately. Not in a sarcastic way, not dismissive, just factual." I nodded, thanked him, and we got to work. No drama, no tension, just clarity. That was the difference. Everything here was direct, honest, accountable. There were no hidden conversations happening behind my back, no quiet agreements being made without me in the room. And if there were, they did not last long. Because I would know. Because I had built a system where I was not the last to find out anymore. During a break, I caught my reflection in one of the glass panels along the hallway. I stopped for a second, just looking. The uniform, the insignia, the posture. It was not just a job. It was proof. Proof that I could stand on my own, without anyone's permission, without anyone's approval. I adjusted the collar slightly, then kept walking. Later that afternoon, I signed off on a set of documents that would have intimidated me a year ago. Contracts, approvals, operational decisions that affected more than just me. My signature mattered here. It carried authority, and I understood it. I respected it. I did not take it lightly. That was the difference between me and them. I knew exactly what a signature meant. I did not use it to take from someone else. I used it to take responsibility. When the day finally slowed down, I sat at my desk, leaned back slightly, and let the quiet settle in for a moment. My phone was still on silent. I had not checked it all day. Not once. I did not need to. Whatever messages were there, whatever calls they made, it did not change what I had already done. It did not change where I was now. I reached for the phone, turned it over in my hand, and looked at the screen. Notifications were still there. Missed calls. Messages. Names I recognized. Names I used to respond to immediately. I did not open them. Not yet. Instead, I set the phone back down on the desk, right next to a stack of documents waiting for my approval. Outside the window, the sky was already starting to dim, the light fading into that late afternoon gray. And sitting there, in that office, with my name on the door and my decisions carrying weight, I realized something they never understood. They thought control came from taking, from forcing, from cornering someone until they gave in. But real control came from knowing exactly who you were and what you were willing to walk away from. I picked up the pen, signed the next document without hesitation, and then finally reached for my phone again. Because now, I was ready to see what they had been trying to do while I was gone. I did not rush when I finally unlocked my phone. I sat there for a few seconds, just looking at the screen, letting that quiet settle in again before I tapped it. The notifications expanded all at once. Missed calls, messages, emails. The same names repeating over and over. Mom, Dad, Daniel, Jessica. It looked frantic. Not controlled like before. Not planned. I opened the first message from my mom. Emily, call me immediately. The next one came 10 minutes later. Something is wrong. Then another. We need to talk right now. I did not respond. I moved to Daniel's messages. Please answer. This is getting serious. I did not know it would go this far. That line made me pause. I read it again, slower this time. I did not know it would go this far. I exhaled quietly and locked the phone for a second, then unlocked it again. This time, I opened the email app. There were new ones. Not from family. From institutions. Legal departments. Notifications that something had been flagged, reviewed, escalated. The same process I had started, now moving on its own. I closed the apps and stood up. The office suddenly felt smaller. Not uncomfortable, just different. Like the moment before something shifts. I grabbed my coat, my keys, and walked out without telling anyone where I was going. I did not need to. By the time I reached my car, the sun was already low. The sky turning that dull gray that comes before evening. The drive felt longer than usual, even though it was not. Traffic lights. Quiet roads. People going about their normal routines, completely unaware that somewhere else, things were unraveling. When I pulled into the lot, there were already cars I recognized. My dad's truck. Daniel's car. Jessica's SUV. All parked close together, like they had arrived in a rush. I sat there for a moment. Engine still running. Hands resting lightly on the wheel. No nerves. No hesitation. Just a steady kind of calm. Then I turned the engine off and stepped out. The air was colder now. Sharper. I walked toward the building, each step measured, unhurried. The glass doors reflected me back for a second before I pushed them open. Inside, the atmosphere was tight. Not loud. Not chaotic. Just tense. Like everyone was holding their breath. I saw them almost immediately. My mom standing near the front desk, her posture stiff, her eyes scanning the room. My dad pacing slowly, phone in hand, checking it every few seconds. Jessica sitting in one of the chairs, arms crossed, tapping her foot against the floor. And Daniel, standing slightly apart from them, looking like he did not know where to stand. No one noticed me at first. That was fine. I took a few more steps forward, then stopped. From where I stood, I could hear pieces of their conversation. They said it was automatic. That is not possible. We had everything ready. Then why is it not going through? My mom's voice cut through, sharper now, less controlled. Call them again. Tell them there has to be a mistake. There was a pause. My dad lowered his phone slowly. They said the account is locked. All of it. Silence followed that. Heavy. Uncomfortable. Jessica shook her head. That does not make sense. She would not. She stopped herself mid-sentence. That was when my mom turned slightly, her eyes finally landing on me. The shift was immediate. Everyone followed her gaze. 4 faces. 4 different reactions. Shock. Confusion. Something close to fear. I did not say anything. I just stood there, letting the silence stretch a little longer, letting them see me. Really? See me. My dad took a step forward, his voice lower now. Emily, what did you do? I tilted my head slightly, not in confusion, but in recognition. Because this was the moment, the one they had not planned for, the one where control shifted, quietly, completely. I took one step closer, my voice calm, steady, almost too calm. You really do not know? I asked. And just like that, everything stopped right before the truth came out. I watched the realization move across their faces slowly, not all at once, but piece by piece, like something finally clicking into place that had been right in front of them the whole time. My dad was the first to speak again, his voice lower now, careful. Emily, if this is some kind of misunderstanding, we can fix it. I shook my head slightly. No, I said. You cannot. My mom stepped forward next, her tone shifting, softer but still controlled. Then explain it to us, she said. Because right now, none of this makes sense. I looked at her for a second, then at the others, letting the silence sit just long enough. You tried to move assets that do not belong to you, I said simply. Jessica let out a short laugh, like she did not believe what she was hearing. They are family assets, she said. We already talked about this. I met her eyes directly. You talked about it, I said. Not with me. That shut her up. Daniel finally stepped forward, his voice quieter than before. Emily. We thought you agreed, he said. I almost smiled at that. You thought I agreed? I repeated. Without me ever saying yes. He did not respond. He could not. My dad tried again, this time more direct. Even if that is true, he said, that does not explain why everything is locked. Why the transfers failed. I nodded once. It failed because you are not authorized, I said. None of you are. My mom frowned. That is not what the documents showed, she said quickly. We had everything prepared. Prepared, I repeated. Based on what? She hesitated. Just for a second. That was enough. I took a step closer, my voice still calm, still steady. You based it on access you thought you had, I said. Access that does not exist anymore. My dad's expression changed slightly. Not anger. Not yet. Something closer to concern. What do you mean anymore? He asked. I reached into my coat and pulled out a folded document, not rushing, not making a show of it. Just holding it in my hand for a moment before handing it to him. He took it carefully, like he already knew it was not going to be what he expected. He opened it. His eyes moved across the page once, then again, slower this time. His grip tightened slightly. This is... he started, then stopped. My mom stepped closer, trying to read over his shoulder. What is it? She asked. He did not answer right away. When he finally did, his voice was quieter than I had ever heard it. It is a transfer of control, he said. Jessica leaned forward. Control of what? She asked. My dad did not look up. Everything, he said. The word hung there, heavy. My mom shook her head immediately. That is not possible, she said. You cannot just do that. I met her gaze again. I already did, I said. Daniel's voice came next, almost a whisper. When? He asked. I looked at him for a moment, then answered. Before Thanksgiving. Silence. Complete. No movement. No reaction. Just that one moment where everything they believed about the situation collapsed. Jessica stood up slowly, her chair scraping lightly against the floor. You are lying, she said, but there was no confidence behind it. None at all. I did not respond right away. I just watched them, each one processing it in their own way. My mom stepping back slightly, my dad still staring at the paper, Daniel looking at me like he was seeing me for the first time. And that was the truth they were not ready for. Not the documents, not the accounts, not the legal details, but me, who I had become without them noticing, who I had been becoming for years while they were too busy planning how to take from me. I took a small breath, then said quietly, "You were never in control." And that was when it hit them, not just what they lost, but how completely they misunderstood me. No one spoke for a few seconds after that. It was not the kind of silence we used to have at dinner, where people were waiting for the next argument or the next demand. This one was different. It was heavy, real. My mom was the first to break it, but her voice was not sharp anymore. It was uncertain. "Emily, you did not have to do this," she said, like she was trying to find a way back to control the situation. I looked at her, not angry, not emotional, just steady. "I did not have to," I said. "You made it necessary." She shook her head immediately. "We were trying to keep things together," she said. "This family—" I cut her off, not loudly. "Just enough. You were trying to take something that was not yours," I said. "That is not the same thing." My dad finally looked up from the document in his hands. He looked older in that moment. Not physically, just worn. "We were not trying to hurt you," he said. I held his gaze. "You already did," I replied. There was no reaction to that. No denial. No argument. Just acceptance. Quiet and uncomfortable. Jessica let out a breath and ran a hand through her hair, pacing a few steps before turning back toward me. "So what now?" she asked. "You just cut us off? That is it?" I did not answer right away. I let the question sit there, not because I did not know, but because I wanted them to hear themselves, to actually understand what they were asking. Daniel spoke next, his voice lower, more careful than I had ever heard it. "Emily, we can fix this," he said. "We can go back, talk through everything, figure out a way to move forward." I looked at him for a moment longer than the others. There was something in his expression I recognized. Regret, maybe. Or fear. It did not matter. "You already moved forward," I said. "You just did it without me." That landed harder than anything else I had said so far. He looked down immediately, like there was nothing he could say that would change that. My mom tried again, stepping closer this time, her voice softer but more urgent. "You are still our daughter," she said. "That does not change." I felt something shift at that. Not enough to break my composure, but enough to register. I nodded once. "You are right," I said. "That part does not change." She looked relieved for half a second. Then I continued. "But everything else does." The relief disappeared just as quickly. I took a small step back, creating space between us. Not aggressively, just clearly. "There are no shared accounts anymore," I said. "No access, no assumptions. Everything connected to me stays with me." My dad opened his mouth slightly, like he wanted to argue, then closed it again. He knew I was not wrong. Jessica crossed her arms again. But there was no confidence behind it now. "You are really doing this," she said quietly. I met her eyes. "I already did," I answered. Another silence followed that. But this one felt different. Not heavy. Just empty. Like something had already ended, and no one knew what to do with what was left. Daniel shifted his weight slightly, like he wanted to step closer, then stopped himself. "What about us?" he asked finally. That question hung there longer than the others. I did not answer it right away. I looked at him. Really looked at him. And for the first time, I did not feel the need to soften anything. "You made your decision," I said. "I made mine." He nodded slowly, like he understood, even if he did not like it. My mom's voice came again, quieter now, almost fragile. "So that is it?" she asked. I looked around at all of them, taking in the room, the tension, the realization settling into each of them in different ways. Then I nodded once. "That is it," I said. No anger, no raised voice, just final. And even then, standing there with everything said, everything exposed, it did not feel complete. Not like a victory, not like closure, just a line drawn, clear, necessary, but not something that erased what came before. And as I turned slightly toward the door, I realized that even though they finally understood what I had done, they still did not fully understand what they had lost. I did not stay long after that. There was nothing left to say that would change anything, and for the first time in my life, I did not feel responsible for filling the silence. I walked out of that building the same way I walked out of that house. Calm, steady, without looking back. But this time, it felt different. Not like I was leaving something behind. It felt like I was stepping into something that was finally mine. The weeks after that were quiet. Not empty like before, but clear. My days had structure again. Work, decisions, responsibilities that made sense. My nights were simple. I would come back to my place. Small but steady. Make something to eat. Sit by the window. And just exist. No tension. No waiting for the next message. No wondering who was talking about me behind my back. Just space. Sometimes I would catch myself reaching for my phone out of habit, expecting a call or a message that needed fixing, something I had to respond to. But there was nothing. And slowly, that stopped feeling strange. It started feeling like peace. Daniel did try to reach out again. A few emails. A voicemail. And he said he wanted to talk, to explain, to make things right. I listened to one of them once, all the way through, just standing in my kitchen with the phone in my hand. His voice sounded different, softer, careful. But it did not. Some things do not break all at once. They wear down slowly until there is nothing left to repair. I did not respond. Not because I wanted to punish him. Just because I was done reopening something that had already closed. My parents sent messages too. Less frequent over time. Less certain. They stopped telling me what I should do. They started asking. That was new. I read some of them. Not all. I never replied. Not yet. Maybe one day. Maybe not. I do not know. And for the first time, I am okay with not knowing. That is the part no one tells you. Healing does not always come with answers. Sometimes it just comes with distance. With space. With the quiet understanding that you do not need to go back to who you were just to make other people comfortable. I still think about that night sometimes. The table. The papers. The moment everything shifted. But it does not hurt the same way anymore. It feels resolved. Not because everything worked out perfectly. It did not. But because I finally saw things clearly. I trusted what I felt, even when it was uncomfortable, even when it meant walking away from people I thought I could never leave. If there is one thing I learned from all of this, it is that boundaries are not something you explain until people understand. They are something you hold, even when no one else agrees, especially then. And if you are listening to this right now, and something in your life feels off, even if you cannot explain it yet, do not ignore that feeling, that quiet voice in your head, that hesitation you cannot quite name. It matters. It is there for a reason. You are allowed to protect yourself. You are allowed to step back. You are allowed to choose peace, even if it costs you relationships that were never really safe to begin with. You are not losing everything when you walk away from the wrong people. Sometimes, you are finally keeping what was yours all along. Thank you for staying with me through this. I know stories like this can feel heavy, especially if they hit close to home. But if nothing else, I hope it reminds you that you are not alone in feeling this way. That there are people out there who understand, even if they have never said it out loud. My name is Emily Carter. I am 37 years old, and the lesson I want to leave you with is simple. Never let anyone convince you that your worth depends on how much you are willing to give up to keep them. And if this story stayed with you, there are more stories like this waiting for you. Stories about choices, about strength, about the quiet moments that change everything. Take your time, stay with what resonates, and when you are ready, continue with the next one.